Why would a species built to avoid injury also evolve to deliberately injure itself, in public, permanently, and call it beautiful? 5,300 years ago, a man died in a mountain pass in the Alps and froze solid enough to preserve his skin for hikers to stumble on in 1991. When researchers examined him, they found something strange. 61 tattoos, dots and short lines cut into his joints and lower back, made by slicing the skin and rubbing charcoal into the wound. Not decoration, or not only decoration. About 80% of them sit on points modern acupuncture still uses to treat rheumatism, a condition his own skeleton shows he suffered from. Someone, 5 millennia before needles and ink were supposed to exist anywhere on Earth, was marking his body on purpose, and it may have doubled as medicine. Ötzi wasn't an outlier. He was early evidence of something every human population on Earth would go on to do independently, with no contact between them. Researchers combing through the Human Relations Area Files, a database of ethnographic records from hundreds of societies, checked 36 hunter-gatherer cultures for body alteration. 33 of them, 92%, practiced scarification. At least 27, 75%, used tattoo pigment too. Half a world apart, people kept arriving at the same conclusion. Cut or mark the skin on purpose, and do it where others can see it. In South Sudan, Nuer and Dinka boys endure rows of lines cut across the forehead as a passage into manhood, a mark that tells every stranger their age set and status before a word is spoken. In New Zealand, Maori moko chisels lines into the face that record a person's lineage and rank, unreadable to outsiders, but completely legible to everyone who matters. In Samoa, tatau, a tattoo covering the body from waist to knee, can take weeks of session after session, and stopping partway through is considered a public failure. The whole village will remember for the rest of that person's life. And in Siberia, more than 2,000 years ago, a young woman, archaeologist now called the Ice Maiden, was buried with elaborate tattoos of deer and mythical animals winding across her arms. Art so fine that infrared imaging only recently revealed its full detail. Different centuries, different continents, no possible cultural transmission between most of them, and yet the same instinct. Pay a price with your own skin and wear the proof of it permanently. Here's what should bother you about that. Evolution is supposed to be relentlessly practical. It punishes waste. An animal that pierces or cuts its own skin risks infection, blood loss, and weeks of vulnerability while it heals, for zero nutritional or reproductive payoff on its own. By every straightforward logic of survival, this behavior should have been bred out of us a long time ago. Instead, it shows up almost everywhere humans have ever lived, invented from scratch again and again. The leading explanation borrows from a much older idea in evolutionary biology called costly signaling. The classic example is the peacock's tail, an enormous, metabolically expensive, predator-attracting liability that exists for exactly one reason. It's a message that can't be faked. Only a genuinely healthy, well-fed peacock can afford to grow and carry something that useless and that visible. Biologist Amos Zahavi called this the handicap principle. The cost isn't a bug in the system. The cost is the entire point, because a cheap signal is a signal anyone can lie with, and animals, including us, evolved to instinctively trust the expensive ones more. Researchers studying tattoos and scarification argue humans evolved a version of the same logic, sometimes called the human canvas hypothesis. Body modification works as a hard-to-fake advertisement of fitness, group loyalty, or willingness to endure pain for something that matters. A related idea, the upping the ante hypothesis, goes further, proposing the wound itself is the message. Healing well and fast from a self-inflicted injury is a visible, honest signal of how strong your immune system actually is. one nobody can counterfeit after the fact. That second idea got tested directly. In 2017, anthropologist Christopher Lynn traveled to American Samoa, where tatau is still practiced and infectious disease is a real, constant threat, and measured the biology of 25 people getting tattooed. He tracked cortisol, an antibody called secretory immunoglobulin A, and C-reactive protein, a marker of inflammation, before and after each session. People with more tattoo experience showed stronger, faster immune responses to the fresh wound than people with fewer tattoos. Getting tattooed over and over seemed to be training the immune system, the same way repeated exercise trains a muscle. The research, published in 2020 in the American Journal of Human Biology, suggested tattooing wasn't just symbolic. It was a genuine, measurable fitness signal, broadcasting to everyone nearby that this body can take damage and come back stronger than it was before. A separate cross-cultural study found the location of these markings isn't random either. Where local pathogen prevalence is higher, scarification is more likely to appear on a woman's stomach specifically, an area closely tied to fertility and childbearing. The body isn't just being marked, it's being marked where the message matters most to whoever is reading it. There's a second, separate function layered on top of all this, and it has nothing to do with mates or immune systems. It's about who you can trust to show up when things go wrong. A cross-cultural analysis of costly male initiation rites found that the harshest, most painful rituals cluster in societies that rely on tight coordination between unrelated men, especially for warfare. If your survival depends on the man next to you not running when things get dangerous, you need proof he's already proven he won't run. A scar he chose to endure, in public, as a teenager, is exactly that proof. It can't be faked after the fact, and it can't be quietly removed. It's a permanent, visible record that says, I already paid a price for this group. I'm not leaving. None of this stopped when we stopped needing it to survive. Militaries still tattoo unit insignia into skin. Fraternities and sororities still brand or mark new members. Gang tattoos still function as membership that can never be quietly revoked. When psychologists surveyed why people today actually get tattoos and piercings, the answers sorted into the same handful of categories every time. Marking an important memory or relationship, signaling belonging to a group, or declaring individuality. Even the most ordinary tattoo, a name, a date, a small symbol, with no formal ritual attached at all, still taps the same ancient circuitry. Something permanent, something that cost you something, worn where it can be seen. So the next time you notice a tattoo, a piercing, or a deliberate scar, you're not just looking at decoration. You're reading a signal your brain was built to recognize long before ink or needles existed. This person paid a price, on purpose, and kept the proof. What price have you paid, and who did you pay it to prove yourself to?